Background. I'm Nate Moore. I'm a product manager at Drone Harmony here. I've been here not too long, a bit more than 6 months now, and I'm really excited about what's going on with docks in general, all of the capabilities that we're getting as it becomes possible to do things like remote piloting, scheduling flights, and doing all of that stuff without having to send a person to a site to show up with a drone. It's really changing a lot of what's possible, and I think it's opening up a lot of new use cases. So I want to talk to you a little bit today about what we're doing, what becomes possible with the Dock 3, and then kind of more generally what's out there and what's possible. So as we go, there are some housekeeping rules here. There's a Q&A tool inside Zoom. If you can use that to ask questions, then we'll be able to respond and track all of that and hopefully answer every single one of those. If we don't, we'll try to answer those after the fact for you. We are going to record this webinar. You probably got a notification about that recording happening already. So we'll send out that recording to you and to anybody who can't make it. We are also happy to send that recording along. And with that said, I will dive into it. I'm going to try and keep everything on the brief side, but that will leave us more time at the end for questions. So don't hesitate to ask those. So Drone Harmony. As I mentioned earlier, we are here in Switzerland. The company has been around since 2016 and started off back before the days of docks, of course, but not before the days of needing to do planning in 3D. So that was the core, and that's something we're really good at is 3D flight management, planning missions in complex scenarios, in complicated terrain. And as you can see, we've logged over 1 million total flights using our planning tools. So that's something that we've really got a lot of experience in. And now we're really happy to apply that in the context of docks so that we can use all of that skill and build out an enterprise solution that's going to be just as trustworthy and let you really do repeatable kinds of flights for those use cases that you need over time in an ongoing fashion in the same location. So what we're going to bring, and I'll show you today, is about this enterprise flight level flight cycle management, how you can really streamline everything. You can let people do just the right job, the job they have the skills for and the abilities. And I'll talk a little bit about some of the other enterprise kind of possibilities that we're building out now as the company matures and moves into this phase of docks being a new possibility. One thing you might see here is we do have our ISO 9001 and 27001 certifications. So if you're working in an enterprise setup, I think that'll help you understand that we're really serious about security, making your data be trustworthy and reliable. So if we move on to the dock, what is a dock? It's a new way of being able to handle and manage your drone. Drones themselves have been around for a decade, even longer, but really commercially available for about 10 years, a little bit longer. But honestly, I think we've all seen with the introduction of DJI, when they started to really come and deliver drones at scale, things really changed. And this is just the next evolution in that step. So with the dock, you can really have fully remote work. You can have one expert planner who can then plan flights for your team around the world. Another thing that's changed is this ability to control everything through the cloud. You don't necessarily have to have a person there on site. Regulatory rules have come a long ways. There's a lot further to go. So I'm going to show you like a live flight today, and I'm able to fly in another country while standing here in Switzerland. That's not necessarily going to be possible for where you are and where you work, but you can always push your friends in government to make things move forward a little bit faster. And I think it's something we can all look forward to. And from what I've seen everywhere that people are working with drones, the rules have gotten better, a little more complex sometimes, but a little more sane. So I think we're all headed the right direction in terms of being able to do things like beyond line of sight flights and all of those things that really enable nice long workflows, more complicated flight plans, and the things that really let you get your done work efficiently. Other things that have changed is the advanced sensing. So on the sensing side, I'm thinking of the sensors you can put on a drone and those constant improvements that are coming in terms of cameras, but also the possibilities that come with LiDAR and other payloads that you can put on drones for like direct measurement, thickness measurements and all of those things. And then AI on top of that, with artificial intelligence and machine learning, looking at images is a very different thing. There's all sorts of these great tools out there where you can take your drone Harmony images, push them off into a solution, and no matter what kind of a thing you're interested in identifying, you can find a tool that will help you do that. So that's not something that we do, but we are now really working on making that data be available for you in your cloud data lake of choice. And then from there, super easy to grab it and move it along. So if we look at the hardware itself, you've got on-site permanent installations, really solid weatherproof designs, high-speed charging. It's got its own built-in cameras for surveillance. So it's a secure setup. I mean, you can see here, there's a camera around it. Not a camera, a fence around it. You want to put it somewhere that's secure, but it in itself is a secure device. And I think that's really an important consideration. Now, what's new? So as usual, new hardware, it's just better. So you've got better weather resistance. I don't remember the numbers, but the IP rating is bumped up on the dock and the drones in the dock as well with the Dock 3 from DJI. You also have longer flight time, more cameras. You've got a zoom, a medium, and a wide lens. There's even some really nice things like better nighttime. The night scene options are really great. And mobile usage. Now, that's something that we haven't implemented yet, but it's a really interesting feature that comes from DJI where you'd be able to, in theory, put this in the back of a pickup truck, something like that. And thanks to a much faster RTK site calibration workflow, you'd be able to get on site, precisely locate the dock where it is at that moment, do your flights for the day or the week, however long you want to leave the dock on site, and then move on. It's still going to have RTK accuracy in terms of the location of the dock itself, but you're going to be able to move it around a lot more easily. So I think that's going to be something really interesting. And then if you think about all of that, what does Drone Harmony add? Control of your data. So we let you take your pictures, keep them all inside the Drone Harmony cloud or inside AWS, or talk to us. You can push it into another cloud if you want to, get your own implementation. We've got a nice set of tools on the flight planning side, but also after that so that you can just more easily work with the drone, manage your flights, and I'll show you live just how easy that is. And we're really focusing on getting all of this ready for enterprise. And part of enterprise means not just, putting the label on it, but building up a whole solid and trustworthy ecosystem around it and making it easy to train and use by all the different people in your organization. So we want your pilots to find it nice to work with. We want your IT and even your, project managers to all find a part of Drone Harmony that's just right for them and helps them do the work they need to. And one other thing that's worth mentioning on that enterprise flow is we do have an API. So if you need to do some kind of integration to be able to work with our data in your cloud, it's going to be easy. You can even go a step further and start to move some of the flight planning capabilities and that sort of thing into your own tool set. Now, who's using this today? So I tried to keep this pretty strictly in terms of just what we have active customers doing. Unfortunately, I'm not able to talk about those exact customers yet, but we are working on some live use cases that we'll be able to show you in the future. But when we talk about who we have active today, we've got hydropower customers, putting the dock at a dam, going out and flying all up and through the watershed, draining down into that. We're in Switzerland. There's some alpine dams here with really complex geography. Some of them are used as pumped storage. So there's big water level changes in a day. Of course, they're also up at elevation and there's a lot of snowfall. So they're trying to accurately measure snow depth and really understand everything that's going on through the whole site. And they're using docks for that today. Plus all the other possibilities that are possible with any kind of a site. We have active industrial sites. Those range from like chemicals to manufacturing, all sorts of other things. We're getting a lot of interest around substations. That's something that's going to be really interesting to see how it develops. There are some substations, again, here in the Alps that are at remote sites like hydropower sites, but all around the world, there's these places where you've got to do your stepping down from, really high voltage down to medium or down even lower to push it into a distribution network. And you don't necessarily have people at those substation sites. And this can manage a couple of different things. Put a thermal camera on your dock. You can use it for actual inspection of your insulators, anything else that might get hot on a site. You can use it with a zoom and some of the tools that I'll show you that let you really carefully plan those flights to take a look at small things like the status of breakers. There's a lot of possibilities, and it's fun to watch all of the customers that are out there start to explore all of that. Also, construction is always a hot topic. If you're working in construction, you know how often a site changes and how valuable it can be to be on that site and get a really nice repeat frequency in terms of, what's going on. Have deliveries been made? What are the volumes of your different piles of different materials? All of those things are things that we're starting to see customers use the dock for. And it's another one of these cases where it helps you use the people you have who are your drone pilots better, maybe let them work remotely, maybe have hardware on site that's always charged up and ready to go. So it's a crossover between all these different needs, between changing workforces, remote sites, and all the different things that can kind of create these gaps that can be filled by a drone that just lives on site. Okay, here's a few examples of what we're starting to see. Let's call them representative imagery from substations, but you can see this is the kind of imagery that some of our customers are collecting. And some of them are doing more than this and using things like the RGB imagery from sites as well to do a lot of the other inspection types. Now, I have a couple of polls that I want to put up in front of you guys, and I won't let this take long. Let me find the button 1 second, and I will start that off. There we are. Did I not tag them into this? There it is. All right. So here's the first one. So if you see this like I do, you should see two different questions. One about how you see the DJI Dock being used at your workplace. And then there's another one about Dock 3 features that you're excited about. So if you can take a look there, we'll give it maybe 30 seconds here. And hopefully you do see that. I don't see any answers yet. But as soon as you can get in there and give a response, then we can take a quick look at what's going on. So let's see. So this is just kind of a little bit out of my curiosity, because I know there's a lot of different ways that people are using our hardware and technology. Okay, I'm going to give it 5 more seconds. All right. And there we go. All right, so I'm going to end that poll. Thank you for participating there. Oh, 1 last minute response. All right. So I see some interest for substations. That's great. Drone first responder. That's not something I'm going to be able to talk to you about today, but I'm interested to see it. I know that's a really growing use case in a lot of parts of the world. And then in terms of features, weather resistance, flying time, and the obstacle sensing LiDAR module. So that's an interesting one. We don't support that yet. And in fact, I haven't actually seen if it's for sale yet, but I, for one, am super excited about that new sensor that's going to be available. If you don't know what that is, it's going to be LiDAR on top of, it sounds like any of the Matrice 4 models, and you'll be able to detect really fine wires like those that you have overhead in a substation, but in other contexts as well. I think it's something like down to I want to say a 5mm wire. That sounds awfully small, but something really fine. So I think that'll be really interesting when that gets out there. All right, now let's move along and I will do a live demo for you. So give me a second here to switch over to Drone Harmony. There you go. I think you see that. And you can see I've got a pretty clean, empty site here. So if you haven't seen Drone Harmony before, this is more or less what you get. It's quite similar to what you see in our web app, but it's also what you'll see if you've just come in, your team has set up a dock and done just the basic bit of setup, where in this case, you can see there's a geofence here. And then if you can see these red zones, those are some no-fly zones. So imagine in this case, you've got maybe those would be some towers on site. Maybe it's parts of a substation that you want to be sure not to fly around. Now we're looking at this in 2D here, but we also have 3D capability. So you can see here we have the same site fully in 3D, and we can even come in. And if we take a look here, back where the dock is, we actually have 3 docks here. 2 are on this server, because we do our testing here as well. So you can see we have a dock 3, a dock 2, and then we have our emergency landing point. Of course, the dock drone should always land back in the dock, but just in case, it's good to have that defined so that you have a backup landing place, and it should be flat nearby. And secure is a concern for that. In case you don't have anybody nearby on site, you want it to land inside the fence, for example, so that you can get it the next day when you're able to deploy someone out there. So let's get in and take a look at the dock 3 itself. So you can see here that the overall image here, let me see if I can change this for you. Yeah, that's a bit cleaner. You can see here we have a camera on the dock itself, and in the background, you can see our 2 other docks sitting there just waiting. Now, in this case, all I could do is take off because I haven't planned a flight yet. So let's take a moment first, and I'll show you just how easy that is to do. So I know that I've got a fence just along here. And just to show you very quickly the manual creation mode, I will just really drop in just a simple little line here, and that's it. We'll just call it done. And I know the ground height there is about 156. And let's see, so that should be good. It's inside the geofence. We can even check it in 3D. Yeah, that looks about right. That'll be a good spot to put it. Now, to go ahead and plan a flight for this one, super straightforward. I can just come in here to our planning tools. It's linear. I want to do a sideways line scan just to get a good look at the face of that fence. Imagine what you could do. You're looking at the side of a canal. I mean, who knows? There's a lot of other possible applications. I wanted to go to our dock 3. Flight altitude of 25 sounds pretty good and well off to the side. Now, I do only want to fly on one side. You can see it is possible to plan to scan from both sides, but then I'd be outside the geofence, so I don't want to do that. These settings are all good, simple defaults. I want to use the onboard camera, that's the Matrice 4D, and I want to compute the gimbal angle automatically. So if we take a look here, you can see it's already doing that. It's angling these so that they will look the right spot. So for me, since I'm here and I know what my hardware is going to be, I'm going to go ahead and define a few more of the parameters, put that up to 5. We'll let it use both, and then I'm going to save that. So we'll just call it sideways line scan. But now we can already really easily come in here. You can actually take a look here and show the perspective view. And what this does is it lets you see exactly where that image will fall. So you can see it is really aiming directly where we want it to be. And you can even see a bit of what else is in the point cloud. Now, let me flip back here. And the reality is, though, I don't just want all of these to be the same. So what I could do is come in here, set the zoom level, but it's a little bit imprecise. I can set the zoom 7 and it will go ahead and do that. But in fact, I know that this is a site that I'm going to have to fly a bunch of times, and it's going to be really important that I get it just right every time. So I actually already did manual flight here. And from that flight, I have images. And the images are of just exactly what I want. And they're already at the right zoom level. So what I did was last week, I came along, and what you see here now is a set of images. So those are the images from my previous flight. That was on May 2nd. So back on Friday, I came and did this flight, 20 images. You can see they're not all spaced the same. And we can take a look there and you'll see why. So I'm going to come in. You can see this one is a zoom. I stepped along, did a couple non-zoom, and we're just calling this like a fence scan, right? So there's another zoom one. And for this next, the one after that, I just rotated the camera a bit, took another picture of a new target. So that's why the spacing isn't perfectly even, but they get just exactly what I want the content to be. So in order to replicate this, I can simply select all of those images, and there we go. So what I'm doing here is creating a new mission from those images, and it'll respect the zoom levels and everything else about it. Now you can see here, part of the mission is outside of a geofence. And if we look closely, that is true, but it's also okay. What I can do here is add a point there, and you can see it was just violating the very corner of the geofence there. No big deal. So now I don't need a picture here. I'm going to convert that one to a navigation point. Here, I do want to get out there a little bit faster. I'm going to let it go full speed. That'll be good. And then I want to show you some other special features out at the other end here, where we have this more complex area. So I'm going to add a point here just so that I have something to work with. And I'm going to come in here and make this all a bit more complex. So this will take just a moment, but not too long. And my goal here is to show you how all of this return to home works with these no-fly zones. You can see I'm badly violating the no-fly zones here already. And I'm getting that notification, which is very helpful. And I'm going to set all this up so we can work around that. So I'll take a moment, I'll put that one there, and one or two more, and we will be good to go. You can see I'm just having to skirt these points, and it doesn't take long. And let's see, I'll add one more in here just so that they stay a little bit further apart. Now, at a glance here, that all looks pretty good. I think I do want a couple more pictures out here, so I will add that in there. I'm going to take a quick look in 3D, see how it all looks. That is nice. That's all going to work well. And now this is where we have some other features that you can start to leverage here. Now, because these are new points and I wasn't doing anything special in terms of setting them up, right? I just put them in the middle. You can see they all just inherited the same gimbal view direction, which is fine, but they're not going to be looking at what I want them to look at. So I'm going to do a couple things here. So this point is a special point to me. So I want all of these to look at it. So I am going to direct them at the POI, and there they are. So you can see that orange arc on the side of the circle is they're all now facing the POI. Now I want to do same thing again, but because these are close to my no-fly zones, I want to be really sure that if something happens and a return to home is triggered, that those do not do a return to home there. So think of this, maybe you're flying inside a substation and you know there's some overhead lines in here. So I'm going to set those as no RTH points. And that means if we come out a step, you can see here, these sections are now red. So on any of those sections of the flight, it's not going to be allowed to go up to the normal return to home elevation. It's going to hunt either forwards or backwards along the flight path until it finds a place that would actually be safe to trigger the return to home. So it does its own decision making. So if you trigger it maybe here where my cursor is, it could go forward, it could go back, but what you know is that it won't go up to the regular return to home altitude until it's in one of these white sections. So that's really nice. And I think for anybody working in complex sites, And there's an awful lot of overhead electrical wires out there in the world. This is going to be something that's really useful. So there we are. I think that all looks pretty good. And I think it's time to fly. So let's see. I thought I already set this, but maybe I didn't hit save. Let me go ahead and do that. And good, good. Now we can just go there, open up the dock again and launch. So that all looks right. I'm going to have it be immediate, but you see here, you could start to schedule here as you need to. If this was a bigger flight, you know, hundreds of images that might take a half hour or something like that, then you would also want to enable this auto resume. Now, looking at how much I've been talking, I'm going to let this go faster so that this will save you all a bit of time. Now, we do have a Bentley integration if you're a Bentley user. Here you get a quick preview and that all looks good. So let's go ahead and launch. Now, one thing that's really nice with the Dock 3 is the responsiveness. So if you've used a Dock 1 or 2, you know, the time between asking for it to open up and take off was quite a lot slower. And it's much, much more responsive now in the Dock 3, which is great. You can see we already took off there. The quoted time is something like 15 seconds. I don't know what the actual is, but it's definitely under a minute, which is a really great improvement. So let's take a look here. I'm going to clean up my view a bit so you can see better. And we are already up in the air, as you can see. Now we're just waiting for the flight to load into the drone. And any second now, it will kick in and go on its way. So you can see the dot there, that's the direction of flight, or the direction of the body rather. So it's going to rotate in a second here and go on its way. Now, one thing you'll see here is that it's a kind of a cloudy day. I'm just going to pause quickly. And this is all pretty well set, but if you wanted to come in here, if you had some really specific settings that you wanted, you could come in and, you know, shorten the shutter time, maybe play with your aperture. I mean, who knows? It's all possible. You can do terrible things, but you don't have to. So I'm going to put it back to auto. I just wanted to make sure you knew that you could see, you know, capture your images the way you need to. Now, off we go. I resumed. It's just resetting itself a bit there and getting back on track. So just so that you remember, this is where we have our points along the way. I was going to scoot right past that first one because that's just a navigation point. But then on these others here along the way, it's taking images as we go. So there's one that was set to zoom, and you remember the zoom was based on the images I uploaded. And this won't take too long, and then we'll move on to stage 2. So now here we go. It's going to switch to another zoom. You can see it takes the one, then it repoints and takes the second one. So it's a super easy way, especially if you are thinking about a dock on a site that you've already flown a few times and you liked the coverage that you got, you can do it here. Because we also let you see the images inside the UI, you can start to do things like compare images visually from one day to the next that were taken at exactly the same location. So it's an interesting kind of a possibility. One thing I'd like to mention when we're here in this complex zone is we also push the no-fly zones directly to the drone. So even if I paused here and took manual control, I wouldn't be able to fly inside the red box, nor would I be able to fly outside the geofence. So let's just let it go along a little bit here. And then I'm going to trigger a return to home in just a second when it gets here. We'll have a nice collection of images, and then you can see how it finds its own way. All right, so I'm going to hit it there in the red section, which means it should continue a bit forward as it did. And then you'll see it heads back for home, but it's going to hit, well, not quite hit, go around intelligently the no-fly zone, avoid the next no-fly zone. And then once it gets into a decent spot there, it's just going to beeline back to the dock. So you can see it's just doing a return to home at this point. It's not actually following the line directly, but it's well on its way. So there it is, and you can see the drone here in flight in the 3D as well. So you're really always able to get the context that you need. Like here, let me zoom in a little bit. And as it comes along, you can even see the camera angle adjusting on the drone itself as the gimbal moves. And as we look in the first person view here, you can see the dock opening and the drone descending down along. So you really always have this like really complete situational awareness without being on site. So that's a really nice benefit, and it helps you really fly that much more safely and always understand the context of where the drone is. So you're always able to pause, take a breath, look around, and also, of course, as you're flying, you have all this really complete telemetry information. So you're getting all the information you need all the time. We'll just let that close, and then we can start to take a look at what else is going on here. So you can see there we already can see the drone has gone back to standby because it's inside the dock. Here it logged as inside. There are no pending tasks because mine just finished. But if we take a look at the history, we can see, let's see, 52 total files. That's not exactly the images. And it was interrupted, which is correct. I did it intermediate. And you can see this was the name of the plan, the mission from images, and I triggered it. So it's a really nice, complete set of information. And in this case, because it was interrupted, it already is offering the option to resume. So if I wanted to resume now, I could just take off. It would go back to where I left off and finish the task, which is really quite nice. That could have been a return to home because of low battery, because of, something was happening on site. You got a warning that there was an aircraft in the vicinity. So for any of those reasons, you can always stop anytime and get back to work. So with all of that said, I'm going to switch back over. Actually, let me quickly check my notes to make sure I showed you everything I wanted to. I think I did. Yeah, I'm not going to show you everything that's possible inside of the whole Drone Harmony interface, but one thing we can do here is we see that those have uploaded. Let's see what we've got. I did some other practice flights today, 529, that's right. So you can see they're already here. We got RGB and thermal. And let's take a look at just a couple of those. So there's a thermal. No, we're out in full daylight, so there we go. And then we have, if I remember correctly, one of the next ones should be zoomed in. There we are. So we're getting everything that we asked for in the right locations, and it was really easy to plan and fly. You saw how quickly that went. So you can see how it'd be easy to train any of the different kinds of people that you have in your team. Now, let's just recap a little bit about what all that was. So there you are. Mission planning, exposure control, zoom control, this respect for all of the return to home rules. So you both have vertical respect so that you're not going to pop up to an elevation that wouldn't be safe. And you also have the geofences that keep you in the right 2D zones above, within your approved flight space, but also outside of spaces where you have towers or chimneys, all of that stuff. So you have really complete information pre-flight about where you're going to be, what's going to happen. In flight, you've got your telemetry, and then post-flight, it's easy to see the status of the uploads of all of your images and all of your other ancillary data. And of course, you saw a little bit about how it's schedulable and remotely accessible. I mean, I just did that flight live in Croatia, standing here in Switzerland. It's a great regulatory setup, so we're definitely taking advantage of that. But the capabilities to be able to get out there and gather this high quality data really quickly and easily is just amazing. Think about all the times you've had a site, even if it's just 20 minutes away, you still have to gather your drone hardware, get yourself over there, assess the site, get an understanding in a much more manual way of what's going on, make sure your plan fits the situation that day. There's not a crane that was brought in overnight. It's a very different thing to be able to manage your flights this way. Something I didn't show you was the complex flight planning capabilities that we have, but it's there. You're able to try that out for yourself. And we also can do things like bring in data from OpenStreetMap for buildings. You've got the background satellite data that you saw. So there's a lot of associated data to give a really complete context there. Okay, I've got one other poll for you guys. I'll keep it quick. Somehow I'm not good at this, but I found it. So here comes the second poll. Now this one is a little bit different. Here you've got a question about the likelihood of your workplace to start using a drone dock. I'm always curious to see if, where people are in the cycle. Is it something that you you're going to get one and you want to find out where you might be able to use it? Or is it really a theoretical question? You're starting to get people in the office to understand the value and it's much further down the road. And then the second question, how many docks do you think your company needs? So I know, of course, there's companies and geographic regions of all sizes. So whatever seems right to you and your company, I'll be curious to see. So not many responses yet. So do take a minute and look here, and I will shut this down in about 3 or 4 seconds here. So what I'm seeing at the moment is maybe next year, and probably not so many of them, but that's all right. I'm really glad to have you here, even if you're not going to try this out for a while yet, because I think it's the way that a lot of different industries are going to be going. So it's great for us all to have a bit of an understanding of what's out there. Now, to get into some really specific things that we can do with the drone dock is we offer custom deployments. We have a couple different flavors of those, but the theme in all of these is that it is hardware that is either on a tenant that is just yours, regardless. You get full data ownership. You can bring your own password policy. You can even bring your own flavor of single sign-on. So if you don't want to use the Drone Harmony sign-on, you can sign up. You can set it up for the Microsoft solution, Entrada. And there's even an option to be fully air-gapped. So you could set it up on your site, on your server hardware, and we just deliver you the Dockers so that you can set everything up, and nobody outside of your company has any sort of visibility into what's going on there. So if security is a concern, that's one end of the spectrum. And then we have a couple other flavors along the way so that you can really control your data and have the right level of trust in everything that's happening there for you guys. So not every industry needs that, of course, but depending on your corporate policies and your rules about data protection, maybe it's the right thing for you. So think about it a little bit, see if that makes sense. If a regular cloud deployment is still super secure, it's just different. Okay, otherwise, if you want to do any customization, which could be valid in a custom deployment, you could even take it a step further and start connecting things at another level, or you can work with a dock that's on our cloud and connect APIs to it so that you can do your own thing. It could be that you want to become a partner and offer some services to your customers, or maybe you have your own set of infrastructure. You want to be able to just do something simple. Maybe you just want to pull data out of our cloud into yours. The API would let you do that. So if you have questions about the API, take a look here at the Drone Harmony API page, see what you see. And if you don't see what you want there, let us know. So why should you care about Drone Harmony? Why should you care about a drone in a box? So drone in a box is its own story. It's data collection tools on site, ready to go. Why should you care about Drone Harmony? We offer the data security side. We help you manage the image capture in a really easy to use kind of a way. We're going to let you, have good support, understand how to get your users up to speed. We'll give you the tools so that the right people can see the right information and trigger the right kind of tasks. But all at the same time, everybody's going to be able to really easily get access to that imagery or videos, whatever it may be that you record. It's a really safe and convenient kind of a way to take care of getting your data capture, your reality capture done. And like I said, easy access. So if you have any questions, I have not looked at the Q&A yet, but I will get in there in a moment. but go ahead right now and enter anything in that you may have. Otherwise, if you want more information, go to droneharmony.com. You'll see we've got user guides. There's video content that you can link to there, or go look on YouTube. There's a blog with a bunch of stories. And then you have our emails. So contact is general, sales and support are kind of self-explanatory. And I would also be more than happy to talk to any of you. So I've got a nice short email address here, nate@droneharmony.com, or if you can either remember this URL or screenshot it and we'll send it out to you, just go ahead and book a meeting. I'd be more than happy to talk about Dock, what you need, how you see it getting used, and kind of what you're interested in. So with that said, let me see if I can get into the Q&A. I see there's been one question answered out there, about 2D and 3D and what's available. And yeah, so we do have, I can even, if anybody else is writing, I'll just take a quick second now. Go ahead and write your questions. I'll come back and look. But yeah, you can see everything in both 2D and 3D. So 2D is quick and easy. There you are. And then in 3D here, you can take a look at this and really start to understand it all in full depth, say. So you understand not just where your images will be taken, but the full path of the drone in all of its complexity. So out here, you can see I'm zigzagging around the no-fly zones, and you really get the whole story. And just so you know, this is one single point cloud that I uploaded here. You can upload data from your favorite public data source. If you've done this yourself with LiDAR, you created it from photogrammetry, it doesn't matter. We just need it to be an LAS or an LAZ file, and you'll be able to get your work done. All right. Any other questions from anybody? Let me get back in there. No? All right. Well, then I will go ahead and close it out, but it's been just about a lot of time. So I really thank you guys for coming, for sticking with it. And if you do think of questions for me, for sales support, anybody after the fact, just let us know, and we'd be more than happy to help you out however we can. So thanks, everybody. Have a good night, and hope to see you out there somewhere in the real world one of these days. Thanks. Bye.